They told her to stay back. The dog had already injured 2 trainers and was minutes away from being euthanized. Every handler at the facility had given up. But this quiet woman in civilian clothes ignored the warnings, walked straight into the cage, and did something no one expected. What happened in the next 10 seconds would expose a military secret buried for years, and prove that some bonds refuse to die, even when the world tries to erase them. From which city in the world are you watching this video today? If stories like this move you, subscribe and stay with me. What you're about to witness will leave you speechless. The briefing room at Fort Bridger K-9 training complex smelled like sweat, old coffee, and tension. Outside the windows, the desert heat shimmered over miles of razor wire and concrete runs, distorting the horizon into wavering lines. Inside, nobody was looking at the view. Every pair of eyes in the room was fixed on the screen mounted to the cinderblock wall. The footage played on a loop, a massive Belgian Malinois, coat the color of burnt caramel, lunging at a handler in full bite gear. The attack was savage and precise. The dog's teeth found the weak point in the protective sleeve, tearing through reinforced canvas like tissue paper. The handler went down hard, his scream cutting through the audio feed before 2 other trainers rushed in with catch poles and tranquilizer darts. Colonel Renwick stood at the front of the room, arms crossed over his chest, jaw set like granite. He was a man built from 30 years of military discipline, and right now, that discipline was the only thing keeping his voice level. 2 injuries in 3 days. 0 compliance with any handler. This animal is a liability. We terminate at 1600 hours unless someone gives me a damn good reason not to. The room held a dozen people, handlers with bandaged forearms and skeptical expressions. Veterinary staff clutching tablets loaded with medical charts and behavioral assessments. A pair of MPs standing near the door, hands resting on their belts. Everyone looked tired. Everyone looked done. Dr. Parveen Lahiri sat near the front, her dark eyes fixed on the screen as the footage looped again. She was the base veterinarian, a woman who had seen her share of traumatized animals come back from deployments overseas. She cleared her throat. "This is not aggression, Colonel. This is trauma. Something happened to this dog in the field. If we can just give him more time, work with a specialist, maybe someone with combat experience who understands what he has been through." Renwick did not look at her. His gaze stayed locked on the frozen image of the Malinois mid-lunge, eyes wild, muscles coiled. "Trauma or not, doctor, I cannot risk another injury. We have protocols. This animal has failed every assessment. The decision is made." One of the handlers, a broad-shouldered man named Garrett, leaned back in his chair. He had been the first one bitten. His right forearm was wrapped in gauze, the outline of teeth marks visible through the white fabric. "That thing is broken. Should have been put down the day it arrived. I have worked with aggressive dogs before. This is different. This one does not want to be controlled. It wants blood." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. Lahiri opened her mouth to argue, but Renwick raised a hand. "Enough. The animal's name is Havoc. He came back from Operation Granite Reach 6 months ago. His original handler was killed in action. Since then, he has been reassigned twice. Both times, he attacked his new handler within a week. We brought him here as a last resort, and he has proven that we were right to consider euthanasia from the start." He picked up a remote and clicked off the screen. The image of Havoc vanished, leaving only the blank white wall. 1600 hours. That gives us 4 hours. If anyone has a legitimate alternative, I will hear it now. Silence. Lahiri looked down at her tablet, scrolling through behavioral notes and medical scans. Nothing in the data suggested Havoc was beyond help. His physical health was excellent. His reactions were sharp, his instincts intact. But the psychological scars were deep, written in every tensed muscle, every refusal to obey, every warning growl that came when someone tried to touch him. She had seen dogs like this before, dogs who had been through hell and came back changed. But she had also seen them recover. It just took time, and the right person. Outside the window, barely visible through the glare of the sun, a figure stood near the perimeter fence. A woman in civilian clothes, sunglasses, a worn canvas jacket despite the heat, jeans and boots that looked like they had seen 1,000 miles of hard ground. Nobody in the briefing room noticed her. She was too far away, too still, blending into the background like a shadow that did not belong but refused to leave. The woman pulled something from her jacket pocket. A photograph, edges soft from being folded and unfolded too many times. She stared at it for a long moment, then looked past the fence toward the distant K9 compound. Her jaw tightened. Her fingers closed around the photograph like it was the only proof she had ever existed. Inside the briefing room, Renwick dismissed the group. Handlers filed out, muttering among themselves. Lahiri lingered, scrolling through her notes one more time, searching for something she might have missed. Renwick noticed. "Doctor, I respect your opinion, but this is not a decision I am making lightly. That dog is a danger to everyone on this base." Lahiri looked up. "I know, Colonel, but I also know that Havoc was one of the best tactical K9s in his unit. His record before the operation was flawless. Something happened out there, something we do not understand. And I think if we could just find the right person, someone who knows how to reach him, we could save him." Renwick sighed. He looked older in that moment, the weight of too many hard decisions pressing down on his shoulders. "If that person exists, Doctor, they have 4 hours to show up." Lahiri nodded and left the room. Renwick stood alone for a moment, staring at the blank screen where Havoc's image had been. Then he turned and walked out, the door swinging shut behind him with a metallic click. The compound at midday was brutal. The sun hammered down on concrete and chain link, turning every surface into a furnace. The K9 runs stretched out in neat rows, each one housing a dog in various stages of training. Most were calm, resting in the shade, waiting for the evening sessions when the heat would break and work could resume. Havoc's pen was at the far end, isolated, reinforced with double chain link and concrete flooring that could not be dug through. Inside, the dog paced in tight circles, ears flat against his skull, eyes tracking every movement beyond the fence. He was a magnificent animal, 80 pounds of pure muscle, bred and trained for combat. His coat was scarred in places, small patches where fur had grown back uneven after injuries. One ear had a notch taken out of it, a souvenir from some firefight no one here had been briefed on. Havoc stopped pacing, his head turned toward the visitor gate, nostrils flaring. Someone was coming. The woman from the fence walked through the checkpoint without hesitation. No badge, no visitor pass. She moved with the kind of calm that came from muscle memory, from years of walking into places where she did not belong and making herself fit anyway. Lieutenant Greer was the first to notice her. He was a young officer, fresh out of training, still learning the rhythms of the base. He jogged over, one hand raised. "Ma'am, this is a restricted area. You need to turn around and check in at the main gate if you have business here." The woman did not stop, did not look at him, just kept walking, boots crunching gravel, eyes fixed on the distant K9 compound. Greer's voice sharpened. "Ma'am, I am ordering you to stop." She kept walking. Greer reached for his radio, voice tight. "We have got a civilian heading toward the euthanasia holding area. Female, no visible identification, not responding to commands." Renwick's voice crackled back immediately. "Detain her. Do not let her near the K9 pens." Greer broke into a jog, closing the distance. He reached out to grab her arm, but she sidestepped without breaking stride, smooth as water. Greer stumbled, caught himself, and reached for his sidearm. "Ma'am, stop right now, or I will be forced to restrain you." The woman finally stopped. She turned to face him, and for the first time, Greer saw her eyes behind the sunglasses. Cold, steady. The eyes of someone who had seen worse things than a young lieutenant with a weapon he was not ready to use. "I am not here to cause trouble. I am here for the dog." Greer blinked. "The dog? Havoc. I trained him." Before Greer could respond, Renwick arrived with 2 MPs, boots pounding pavement. He stopped a few feet away, taking in the woman with a single sweep of his gaze. No uniform, no rank insignia. But the way she stood, the way she carried herself, it was unmistakable. Military. Or former military. "Miss, step away from the enclosure. That animal is extremely dangerous." The woman did not move, did not look at Renwick. Her eyes were locked on the distant pen, where Havoc was visible through the chain link, still as stone, staring back at her. Renwick's voice hardened. "I do not know who you think you are, but you need to leave this facility immediately." The woman spoke quietly, still facing the pen. "Isley Torm. I trained him." Silence. Lahiri had just arrived, tablet in hand, drawn by the commotion. She stopped a few feet behind Renwick, eyes wide. There is no record of that. Havoc came back from Operation Granite Reach 6 months ago. His original handler was killed in action. Isley's expression did not change. I know. Renwick's eyes narrowed. We have full documentation on this animal. Every handler, every deployment, every mission. Your name is not anywhere in the file. I know, Isley repeated, voice flat. The MPs exchanged looks. One of them shifted his hand closer to his holster. Renwick crossed his arms. Then, you need to explain yourself before I have you removed. Isley finally turned to face him. Her eyes were cold, distant, like she was looking at him from a great height. You cannot find my name because I was erased, administratively, completely, like I never existed. Renwick's jaw tightened. That is not how the military works. It is when the mission never happened. The tension crackled like static. Lahiri's breath caught. Greer looked between Renwick and Isley, completely lost. Isley turned back to the pen. She reached for the gate latch. Renwick stepped forward sharply. Do not enter that pen. The MP's hands moved to their sidearms. Lahiri raised a hand, voice urgent. Colonel, if she really trained him, maybe she can help. Maybe she is the person we have been looking for. Renwick did not take his eyes off Isley. If she enters that pen and that dog attacks, we will have no choice but to put him down immediately. Is that what you want? Isley's hand rested on the latch. She looked at Renwick, then at Havoc. The dog was standing now, pressed against the far side of the fence, body trembling. He will not attack me. You cannot know that. Yes, Isley said quietly. I can. She opened the latch. The gate swung wide with a metallic groan. Renwick shouted, Step back! Everyone step back! But Isley was already inside. The pen was silent except for the sound of her boots on concrete. Havoc stood 20 feet away, every muscle coiled, eyes locked on her. His lips pulled back slightly, revealing teeth. A low growl rumbled in his chest. Isley stopped. She lowered herself to one knee, slow and deliberate. Her hands opened at her sides, palms up. She did not make eye contact, did not speak. Just knelt there, utterly still. Havoc's growl deepened. His body tensed. Then he charged. 80 pounds of trained aggression closed the distance in seconds, claws scraping concrete, breath coming in sharp bursts. The crowd outside the fence gasped. Greer drew his weapon. Lahiri covered her mouth. Havoc skidded to a stop inches from Isley's face. His breath was hot, ragged. His body trembled with barely contained energy. But he did not bite. He just stared at her, confused, searching. Isley whispered something. The words were too quiet for anyone outside the fence to hear. Not English, not German. Something older, rougher. A language that sounded like gravel and smoke. Havoc's ears lifted. His body language shifted. The aggression drained out of him like water from a cracked cup, replaced by something fragile. Recognition. Isley raised one hand, slow, deliberate. A closed fist, rotated twice counterclockwise. Havoc dropped into a perfect sphinx position. Instantly, flawlessly. Outside the fence, every handler stood frozen, mouths open. Greer lowered his weapon, eyes wide. Lahiri's hands shook as she gripped her tablet. Renwick's face had gone pale. Isley gave another signal. This one faster, more complex. A series of hand gestures in rapid succession, each one precise as a scalpel. Havoc moved through a sequence like clockwork. Down, combat roll, guard position, directional recall, tactical sit. It was not obedience. It was surgical precision. Combat execution. Tier 1 level. Renwick's voice came out hoarse. What the hell is that? Lahiri whispered. Those are not standard K9 commands. One of the handlers, a woman named Cortez who had worked with military dogs for 15 years, shook her head slowly. Those are not in any training manual I have ever seen. Isley stood. Havoc rose with her, perfectly synchronized. She walked to the gate. He followed at her heel, calm now, obedient, waiting. She closed the gate behind her and turned to face the stunned crowd. Renwick stepped forward, voice low and dangerous. Who the hell are you? I told you. His handler. Then why is your name not in the system? Isley met his eyes. Her voice was steady, cold as winter. Because someone did not want anyone to know I survived. Renwick stared at her. Lahiri's hand covered her mouth. Greer looked between them, utterly lost. Isley did not blink. And if you check your classified database, you will find that according to official records, I am dead. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the other dogs in the compound seemed to sense the shift, falling quiet. Renwick pulled out his phone, stepped aside, and made a call. His voice was too low to hear, but his expression said everything. Tense, urgent, disbelieving. Lahiri approached Isley slowly, like she was approaching a wild animal. Your name is Isley Torm? Yes. And you were part of Operation Granite Reach? Isley's gaze flicked to Havoc, then back to Lahiri. Yes. What happened out there? Isley was quiet for a long moment. Then she looked back at the pen where Havoc sat waiting, ears pricked, eyes never leaving her. Everything that was not supposed to. Renwick ended his call and walked back over, his face unreadable. I just spoke to personnel records. There is no file under your name, no service record, no deployment history, nothing. Isley's voice was flat. I know. Then how do I know you were telling the truth? Isley gestured to Havoc. Because he remembers. Renwick stared at the dog. Havoc stared back, utterly calm for the first time since he had arrived at Fort Bridger. Greer stepped forward hesitantly. Sir, there is something else. I ran a secondary search through classified archives. There is a redacted section in Havoc's mission log. It is flagged skiff level clearance. I cannot access it without higher authorization. Renwick's jaw tightened. He looked at Isley. What is in that file? The truth? And what is the truth? Isley's eyes were hard as steel. That my team died for a mission that officially never happened. And the only reason I am still alive is because someone decided it was easier to erase me than explain why I survived. The weight of those words settled over the group like a shroud. Lahiri looked stricken. Greer looked lost. Renwick looked like a man who had just opened a door he could not close. He gestured to the MPs. Escort Miss Torm to briefing room 3. Nobody speaks to her until I get clearance from command. The MPs moved forward. Isley did not resist. But before they led her away, she looked back at Havoc one last time. The dog whined, low and soft, a sound none of the handlers had ever heard him make. Isley's voice was barely a whisper. I will come back for you. Then she was gone, flanked by MPs, disappearing into the concrete maze of the compound. Renwick stood alone, staring at Havoc. The dog sat perfectly still, eyes fixed on the path Isley had taken, waiting. Lahiri approached quietly. Colonel, if what she is saying is true, if she really was erased from the records, then someone very high up did not want her found. Renwick did not respond. He just kept staring at the dog. And if that is the case, Lahiri continued, then bringing her here, exposing her, it could have consequences. Renwick finally looked at her. His voice was quiet but firm. Then, we better make sure we get to the truth before those consequences catch up to us. He turned and walked toward the command building, leaving Lahiri alone with Havoc. She approached the pen slowly. Havoc did not growl, did not tense. He just watched her with those sharp, intelligent eyes. She whispered, What did you see out there, boy? What do you know that they do not want us to find? Havoc tilted his head, ears swiveling. And for the first time, Lahiri understood. This was not just a dog. This was a witness. The only living witness to something that had been buried deep. She pulled out her tablet and began typing a message to Renwick. We need to access that redacted file. Whatever is in there, it is the key to everything. Across the compound, Isley sat in a windowless briefing room, hands folded on the table in front of her. The MPs stood by the door, silent. She did not look at them, did not speak. Just sat there, perfectly still, like she had done this 100 times before. Because she had. Her mind drifted back, to sand and fire, to the smell of burning metal and blood, to the weight of Havoc's limp body in her arms as she ran through smoke and chaos, refusing to leave him behind, to the faces of her team, Ironside, Viper, Hatchet, gone, to the mission that succeeded, the intel that was transmitted, the objective that was completed, and to the silence that followed, the erasure, the lie. She opened her eyes and stared at the blank wall in front of her. They thought they could bury the truth, but the truth had 4 legs and a bite force of 700 psi, and it just remembered her. If you have ever felt invisible, erased, or forgotten, leave a comment below. Sometimes the most important stories are the ones no one wants told. If this resonated with you, subscribe. There is more to uncover. The briefing room was cold, not from air conditioning, but from the kind of silence that settles when everyone knows something is wrong, but no one wants to say it out loud. Isley sat at the metal table, hands flat against the surface, feeling the coolness seep through her palms. The 2 MPs stood by the door, rigid and professional, eyes forward. They had not spoken since escorting her inside 30 minutes ago. She did not mind the silence. She had spent months in silence, moving through cities where no one knew her name, sleeping in motels where the desk clerks never asked questions, living like a ghost, because officially, that was what she was. The door opened. Colonel Renwick entered first, followed by Dr. Lahiri, and 2 people Isley did not recognize. A man in his mid-40s, sharp eyes, navy uniform with intelligence insignia. A woman slightly younger, civilian clothes but military posture. They carried tablets and files stamped with red classification markers. Renwick gestured for the MPs to leave. They hesitated, then obeyed. The door clicked shut. The man took a seat across from Isley. He set his tablet down carefully, like he was placing a weapon on the table. "Miss Torm, I am Commander Sokolov, Naval Intelligence. This is Agent Raina Cross, Defense Intelligence Agency. We have some questions." Isley did not react, just looked at him with those steady, unreadable eyes. Sokolov pulled up a document on his tablet and turned it so she could see. It was a personnel file. Her face stared back from the photo. Younger, sharper, the woman she used to be. But the file itself was a mess. Entire sections blacked out. Dates redacted. Service history replaced with blank spaces and security markers. This is your file, or what is left of it. According to official records, you were part of a joint task force deployed under National Security Directive 47. That directive grants the Department of Defense authority to classify operations and personnel records indefinitely. Do you understand what that means? Isley's voice was calm. It means, I officially do not exist. Sokolov nodded. That is correct. It also means that your presence here, your interaction with a classified military asset, and your knowledge of redacted operations put you in a very complicated position. Lahiri spoke up, her voice softer. We are not trying to intimidate you, Miss Torm. We just need to understand what happened. Havoc has been classified as unmanageable. He has injured 2 handlers. We were going to euthanize him today. But you walked into his pen and he responded to you like no time had passed. That means something. Isley looked at Lahiri. It means he remembers. Remembers what? Sokolov asked. What we went through. Renwick leaned forward, elbows on the table. Then tell us. Because right now, all we have is a redacted mission file and a dog that has been through hell. If you were really his handler, if you were really part of Operation Granite Reach, then you know what happened out there. And we need to know too. Isley was quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke, her voice low and measured. We were tasked with recovering a prototype weapon system from a hostile zone. High-value target. The intel said it was being moved through a remote compound near the border. My team was 4 operators. Call signs Ironside, Viper, Hatchet, and me. 2 K9s, Havoc and Reaper. She paused, her eyes distant. We infiltrated at 0200. Clean entry, no contact. We located the asset in a fortified vault. Ironside cracked it. We had the package in hand. Mission complete. Then what happened? Sokolov asked. Isley's jaw tightened. We were compromised. Someone knew we were coming. The compound lit up. Hostiles poured in from every direction. We tried to extract, but they cut us off. It turned into a close quarters fight. Room to room. Havoc and Reaper held the flanks while we pushed toward the exfil point. Her voice did not waver, but her hands pressed harder against the table. Ironside took a round to the chest. Viper went down trying to pull him out. Hatchet covered our retreat, but he did not make it either. Reaper was killed protecting Viper. It was just me and Havoc. We held a choke point for 14 hours. He took shrapnel from a grenade that was meant for me. I carried him 3 kilometers through enemy fire to the extraction zone. Lahiri's hand covered her mouth. Renwick's expression was grim. Sokolov took notes without looking up. When we got stateside, I was debriefed for 6 days. Medical eval, psych eval. Then I was told my service was being administratively concluded. No discharge papers, no benefits, no record. They gave me a new ID, $5,000, and told me to disappear. And Havoc? Lahiri asked quietly. Reassigned? I was told he would receive medical treatment and return to active duty. I was not. Allowed contact. When I tried to appeal, I was informed that there was no record of my service to appeal. No file, no deployment history, nothing. Sokolov looked up. Why would they erase you? Isley met his gaze. Because the mission was not supposed to happen, and when it went wrong, someone decided it was easier to bury everyone involved than explain why we were there in the first place. Renwick leaned back, processing. So, you have been looking for him? For 6 months. I tracked him through reassignments, heard about an uncontrollable K-9 at Fort Bridger. I knew it was him. Agent Cross spoke for the first time, her voice clipped and professional. If what you are saying is true, then you are in violation of multiple security protocols, unauthorized access to a military facility, contact with classified personnel, disclosure of redacted operations. Isley did not flinch. I do not care about protocols. I care about that dog. Cross's expression did not change. That dog is military property. That dog is a soldier. And he has done his time. The room fell silent again. Sokolov tapped his tablet, pulling up another file. He read it, his expression darkening. Colonel, there is something here you need to see. He turned the tablet toward Renwick. Lahiri leaned in to look. Isley could not see the screen, but she watched their faces change. Shock, confusion, anger. Renwick's voice was tight. When was this issued? 2 weeks ago. Renwick looked at Isley, something new in his eyes. Respect, or maybe just realization. Miss Torm, according to this memo, you were recommended for a posthumous commendation. Status listed as presumed KIA. Isley's voice was ice. I am not dead. No, Renwick said quietly. You are not. Sokolov closed the file. This changes the situation. If you were listed as KIA and you were clearly alive, then someone made a deliberate error, or a deliberate decision. Isley leaned forward slightly. What does that mean for Havoc? Renwick stood. It means we need to figure out what really happened before anyone else finds out you are here. Because if they erased you once, they will try to do it again. He gestured to Lahiri. Doctor, I want a full medical and behavioral workup on Havoc. Everything. If there is something we are missing, I want it found. Lahiri nodded and left the room quickly. Renwick looked at Sokolov. Commander, I need access to that redacted file. Whatever clearance it takes, get it. Sokolov hesitated. Sir, that level of classification requires approval from JSOC. It could take days, then make it hours. Sokolov nodded and left with Agent Cross. Renwick turned back to Isley. You are going to stay here. Voluntary protective custody. If what you are saying is true, then you are a witness to something that powerful people wanted buried. Until we know what that is, you are safer inside this compound than outside it. Isley did not argue. She just nodded. Renwick walked to the door, then paused. For what it is worth, Miss Torm, I believe you, and I am going to do everything I can to make this right. He left. Isley sat alone in the room, the hum of fluorescent lights the only sound. She closed her eyes and let herself remember. Not the firefight, not the blood, but the quiet moments. Havoc curled up beside her in a safe house, exhausted but alert, his head resting on her boot while she kept watch. The way he always knew when something was wrong, the way he moved without being told, the way he trusted her completely. She had failed her team, but she would not fail him. Outside, the sun was beginning to set. The desert heat softened into something almost bearable. Lahiri stood at the entrance to Havoc's pen, watching him through the chain link. He was lying down now, head on his paws, eyes fixed on the path Isley had taken hours ago. She opened the gate slowly. Havoc's ears swiveled, but he did not move. "Hey boy, mind if I come in?" No response. Just that steady, watchful gaze. Lahiri stepped inside, keeping her movements slow and non-threatening. She knelt a few feet away from him, close enough to observe, far enough to give him space. "I know you miss her. I can see it. You have been waiting for her, have you not?" Havoc's tail twitched once. Not a wag, just acknowledgement. Lahiri pulled out a handheld scanner, the kind used for checking embedded microchips. She had scanned Havoc when he first arrived, found his standard military ID chip, but something had been nagging at her. The way Isley moved, the commands she used, the precision. She scanned again, this time adjusting the frequency range. The scanner beeped, then beeped again. A second signal. Lahiri's eyes widened. She scanned more carefully, moving the device along Havoc's body. The second signal was faint, embedded deep in the muscle tissue near his shoulder blade. Not a standard chip. Something else. She pulled out her phone and called Renwick. "Colonel, I found something. Havoc has a second implant. It is not standard issue. I need to extract it." Renwick's voice crackled back. "Do it. Carefully." Lahiri prepped a small surgical kit, hands steady despite the adrenaline. She spoke softly to Havoc as she worked, applying a local anesthetic, making a tiny incision. The dog did not flinch, did not growl, just watched her with those intelligent eyes. She extracted a small object, smaller than a grain of rice, metallic, sealed in biocompatible casing. It was a data chip. Lahiri's breath caught. She sealed the incision, bandaged it, and left the pen with the chip secured in a sterile container. 20 minutes later, she was in the secure lab with Renwick, Sokolov, and Agent Cross. The chip sat on a tray under bright surgical lights. Sokolov examined it with a magnifier, military grade, encrypted. "This is a black box recorder, used on deep cover operations where traditional comms are not secure. Can you access it?" Renwick asked. Sokolov pulled out a specialized tablet, connected the chip through a secure interface. Lines of code scrolled across the screen, encryption keys cycled, then the screen cleared, file structure loaded, audio, video, GPS logs, mission telemetry. He opened the first file. Helmet cam footage filled the screen, night vision, green-tinted chaos, voices crackling over comms. Ironside, Viper, Hatchet, Isley, 4 operators moving through a compound, Havoc and Reaper flanking, shadows among shadows. The operation was flawless, coordinated, professional. They breached the vault, secured the package, a sleek metallic case locked with biometric seals. Then everything went wrong. Gunfire erupted, muzzle flashes, screaming. The footage shook as the operator wearing the camera took cover. Havoc lunged at an insurgent, teeth finding throat, the man dropping like a stone. Ironside's voice, strained. "We are compromised. Exfil now, more gunfire, an explosion." The camera spun, catching a glimpse of Viper going down, blood spreading across his chest. Hatchet returned fire, covering their retreat. Reaper's yelp cut through the noise. The dog collapsed, motionless. The footage became chaotic. Running, smoke, fire. Isley's voice, calm despite the hell around her. Havoc, guard left. Hold. The camera caught a glimpse of Havoc, bloodied but standing, holding a narrow corridor while Isley dragged something heavy. A body. Ironside. But Ironside was already gone. She set him down gently, then turned back. Havoc was limping now, blood matting his fur. She scooped him up, all 80 pounds, and ran. The footage cut to static. The lab was silent. Sokolov opened another file. This one was different. Tactical overlay, mission objectives, target, prototype weapon system, directive, recover or destroy, authorization, classified. He scrolled further. The objectives shifted. New directive, destroy package, transmit intel, exfil secondary location. Isley's voice recorded on mission comms. Package destroyed. Charges set. Intel transmitted. Requesting immediate exfil. Confirmation received. Exfil inbound. ETA 14 minutes. Sokolov paused the playback. She completed the mission. The package was destroyed. The intel was transmitted. This was not a failure. Then why was it buried? Renwick asked. Sokolov opened another file, a document, heavily redacted, but enough was visible. Source of weapons system, Allied defense contractor, unauthorized sale to hostile forces, exposure risk, extreme. Agent Cross read over his shoulder, her face hardening. They sold weapons to the enemy. And when Isley's team found out, they buried the whole thing. Renwick's fists clenched. They erased her. Killed her team's legacy. All to cover up a defense contractor selling arms to insurgents. Sokolov ejected the chip, his expression grim. This is evidence, federal level. If this goes public, it will destroy careers. Maybe more. Renwick looked at him. Then we make sure it does. Cross shook her head. Colonel, with respect, you do not have the authority. This is above your clearance. Above mine? If we move on this without proper channels, we could all end up erased. Renwick's voice was steel. Then we better move fast. He turned to Lahiri. Doctor, make copies of everything. Secure server. Off-site. If anything happens, that data goes live. Lahiri nodded, hands already moving. Renwick looked at Sokolov. Commander, I need you to contact the Inspector General, quietly. We need someone outside the chain of command who can act on this. Sokolov hesitated, then nodded. I will make the call. Renwick left the lab, heading back toward the briefing room where Isley waited. She looked up when he entered. Her expression did not change, but something flickered in her eyes. Hope, maybe? Or just the faintest relief that someone finally believed her. We found it, Renwick said. The chip, everything you said, it is all there. Isley's hands relaxed slightly. My team? Honored, I will make sure of it. She nodded once. And Havoc? Renwick sat down across from her. Technically, you were never officially discharged, which means legally you are still enlisted. I can reinstate you, temporarily. Long enough to transfer Havoc into your care as his authorized handler. Isley's voice was quiet. Thank you, Colonel. Do not thank me yet. We still have a problem. What problem? Renwick pulled out his phone, showing her a message that had just come through. Official DoD communique. Classified. The Pentagon just issued a directive. They want the data chip, and they want you in custody. They are sending a team. They will be here in 2 hours. Isley's expression hardened. They are going to bury it again. Not if we move first. What do you mean? Renwick stood. We have 2 hours. Lahiri is securing the data. Sokolov is contacting oversight. But you need to leave, now, before that team arrives. Isley stood slowly. And Havoc? Renwick met her gaze. You are his handler. He goes with you. For the first time since she had arrived, Isley's expression softened. Just slightly. Thank you. Renwick walked her to the door. One of the MPs was waiting outside, but Renwick waved him off. Get her to the K9 compound. Gear up Havoc. Full tactical kit. Then get them off this base through the service gate. Quietly. The MP hesitated. Sir, if command finds out I helped her leave, I will be court-martialed. Renwick's voice was firm. If you do not help her leave, you will be complicit in covering up a crime that got good soldiers killed. Your choice. The MP swallowed hard, then nodded. Yes, sir. Isley followed him through the compound, moving quickly but not running. Drawing attention was the last thing she needed. They reached Havoc's pen. The dog stood immediately when he saw her, tail wagging once, controlled and precise. She opened the gate. He stepped out, pressing against her leg. She knelt, running her hands over him, checking the bandage where Lahiri had extracted the chip. You okay, boy? Havoc licked her hand once. That was answer enough. The MP brought Havoc's old tactical vest, cleaned and repaired. Isley strapped it on, her hands moving with muscle memory. Havoc stood perfectly still, like they had done this 1,000 times. Because they had. She clipped a lead to his collar, more for appearance than control. Havoc did not need a lead. He would follow her into hell if she asked. They moved toward the service gate on the far side of the compound. It was rarely used, mostly for maintenance vehicles. The MP unlocked it, glancing around nervously. You have got maybe 90 minutes before they realize you are gone. Isley nodded. Thank you. The gate swung open. Beyond it, the desert stretched out under a darkening sky. Somewhere out there was an old pickup truck she had left parked near a maintenance shed. She stepped through. Havoc followed. The gate closed behind them with a soft click. They moved through the shadows, keeping low, using the terrain. Isley's training came back like breathing. Havoc moved beside her, silent and fluid. They reached the truck. Isley opened the passenger door. Havoc jumped in, settled on the seat. She climbed in, turned the key. The engine coughed, sputtered. Come on. She tried again. The engine caught, roared to life. Isley shifted into gear and drove, headlights off, navigating by moonlight until they were far enough from the base that the lights would not give them away. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Data is secure, multiple backups. If anything happens, it goes live. You did good, operator. Stay safe. Sokolov. Isley set the phone down. Havoc rested his head on her shoulder, the way he used to on long rides between safe houses. She reached up, scratched behind his ears. We are not done yet, boy, but we are close. Havoc's tail thumped once against the seat. Behind them, Fort Bridger disappeared into the night. Ahead, the desert opened up, vast and empty. But Isley knew empty spaces. She had lived in them for 6 months, and this time, she was not alone. Back at the base, Renwick stood in his office, watching the security feed. He saw the moment Isley's truck disappeared beyond the perimeter. His phone rang. The caller ID read, Pentagon Liaison. He answered, Colonel Renwick. The voice on the other end was cold, clipped. Colonel, we have been informed that a civilian accessed your facility today. A woman named Isley Torm. We need her detained immediately. Renwick kept his voice even. Miss Torme left the facility an hour ago. We have no record of her current location. A pause. Then the voice came back, harder. Colonel, do you understand the severity of this situation? I understand perfectly, which is why I have already contacted the Inspector General's office regarding irregularities in classified personnel records and potential violations of federal law. Another pause. Longer this time. You are making a mistake, Colonel. Maybe. But it is my mistake to make. He hung up. Lahiri appeared in the doorway. The data is uploaded. 6 different servers, all encrypted. If they try to bury this now, it will blow up in their faces. Renwick nodded. Good. Now we wait. For what? For the truth to do what it does best. Surface. Miles away, Isley pulled the truck off the road and into a grove of trees. She killed the engine, let the silence settle. Havoc stirred, ears swiveling. She heard it too. A vehicle, distant but approaching. She reached into the glove compartment, pulled out a small handgun. Not military issue. Something she had picked up months ago when she realized she was being hunted. Havoc growled low. Easy. We are okay. The vehicle passed by on the main road, headlights sweeping through the trees. It did not slow. Did not stop. Isley waited another 10 minutes, then started the engine again. They drove through the night, putting miles between themselves and Fort Bridger. Isley did not have a plan beyond survive, but that had been her plan for 6 months. It had worked so far. Havoc slept beside her, head resting on her thigh. She kept one hand on his back, feeling the rise and fall of his breathing. For the first time since the mission, since the erasure, since everything, she felt something close to peace. It did not last. Her phone buzzed again, another unknown number. She almost did not answer, but something made her. Hello? Miss Torm, this is Agent Cross. Do not hang up. Isley's grip tightened on the wheel. What do you want? I want to help you. The team that was sent to Fort Bridger, they are not just looking for you. They are looking for the chip, and they have authorization to use any means necessary to recover it. Isley's blood went cold. Meaning? Meaning they will kill you if they have to, and they will make it look like an accident. Why are you telling me this? Because I read the file, I know what happened, and I know you deserve better. Isley was silent. Cross continued. There is a safe house. Coordinates I am sending you now, it is off-grid. DOD does not know about it. You can disappear there, at least until this blows over. And if it does not blow over, then you stay disappeared, but at least you will be alive. The coordinates came through. Isley glanced at them. Northern Arizona, middle of nowhere. Why should I trust you? Because if I wanted you dead, I would not be calling. Isley ended the call. She stared at the coordinates, then at Havoc. What do you think, boy? Havoc opened one eye, looked at her, then closed it again. Yeah, me too. She changed course, heading toward the coordinates. The night stretched out ahead, empty and endless. But somewhere in that emptiness was a chance, a sliver of hope that maybe, just maybe, the truth would be enough. Behind them, the lights of Fort Bridger faded into memory. Ahead, the desert waited. And in the rearview mirror, Isley saw something that made her breath catch. Headlights. 2 vehicles. Closing fast. Havoc sat up, instantly alert. Isley pressed the accelerator. The old truck groaned but responded. The headlights behind them grew brighter. She reached for the gun. Havoc growled, teeth bared, and the chase began. If you have ever had to fight for the truth when everyone else wanted it buried, share your story below. Sometimes survival is the only victory we get. If you want to see how this ends, subscribe. Because what happens next will change everything. The headlights were gaining. Isley pushed the accelerator harder, the old truck rattling as it hit 70 on a desert road not meant for speed. Beside her, Havoc braced himself against the seat, eyes locked on the side mirror, tracking the pursuit with the same intensity he had shown in combat zones half a world away. 2 vehicles, black SUVs, government issue. They were not trying to hide what they were or what they wanted. The distance between them and Isley's truck was shrinking with every passing second. Isley's mind raced through options, calculating probabilities the way she had been trained to do in impossible situations. She could not outrun them. The truck was old, the engine unreliable, held together more by luck than engineering. Fighting was not an option either. 2 vehicles meant at least 4 operators, maybe 6 or 8, all armed, all trained to the same standards she had been. Some might even be better. Her only advantage was terrain knowledge, and the fact that she had spent 6 months learning how to disappear, how to move through spaces where no one expected her to be, how to survive when survival seemed impossible. She killed the headlights and yanked the wheel hard right, taking the truck off-road without warning. The suspension screamed in protest as they hit rough ground, sagebrush scraping the undercarriage with sounds like claws on metal. Havoc shifted his weight instinctively, keeping balance the way he had learned to do in vehicles moving through hostile territory. Behind them, the SUVs hesitated for only a moment, their drivers processing the sudden change. Then they followed, their headlights cutting through the darkness like searchlights hunting for prey. Isley navigated by moonlight, memory, and instinct. There was a dry riverbed half a mile ahead, rocky and uneven, carved into the desert floor by water that only flowed a few times each year. The truck could handle it. She had driven worse terrain in worse vehicles. The SUVs, built for highways and city streets, would struggle with the loose rocks and sudden drops. She found the riverbed and drove straight into it without slowing. The truck bounced violently over stones and ruts, the steering wheel fighting her grip. Havoc let out a low whine, but stayed steady, his body pressed against the seat to maintain position. The first SUV followed without hesitation. Its heavier frame slammed into the rocks, suspension bottoming out with a crunch of metal on stone. The second SUV slowed, the driver trying to find a better path, losing precious seconds in the attempt. Isley used the delay. She drove another quarter mile, the truck's shocks absorbing. Punishment they were never designed to handle, then pulled behind a cluster of boulders large enough to hide the vehicle. She cut the engine, and the sudden silence was overwhelming. She grabbed the gun from the passenger side floor, checked the chamber with practiced efficiency. 12 rounds. Not enough if it came to a firefight. Not nearly enough. Havoc was already out of the truck before she opened her door, moving low and quiet, every sense alert. Isley followed, crouching behind the boulders, her breath coming steady despite the adrenaline flooding her system. She could hear the SUVs now, engines growling like predators, tires crunching over stone as they searched. Voices carried in the still desert air, professional and calm. Tracks end here. She is close. Fan out. Thermal scan the area. Isley's heart sank. Thermal imaging. They would find her in minutes, maybe less. The desert night was cool enough that her body heat would show up like a beacon against the rocks. She looked at Havoc. The dog was watching her, waiting for a command, trusting her completely the way he always had, even when that trust had nearly gotten him killed. She gave a hand signal, one she had not used in months but knew he would remember. Guard and distract. Havoc's ears perked forward. He understood immediately, the way he always understood, the bond between them transcending language. She pointed toward the SUVs. Havoc moved like a shadow, low to the ground, utterly silent, becoming part of the darkness itself. Isley circled in the opposite direction, using the rocks for cover, moving with the same training that had kept her alive through missions that should have killed her. She needed to get close enough to disable their equipment without getting killed in the process. The math was simple and brutal. One of the operators stood near the lead SUV, holding a handheld thermal scanner. He was sweeping it slowly across the terrain, methodical and patient. Professional. He would find her eventually. Isley raised the gun, sighting down the barrel at center mass. She could take the shot, drop him before he knew she was there, but that would give away her position and escalate everything into a firefight she could not win. Before she could decide, Havoc struck. The dog came out of the darkness like a missile, 80 pounds of trained aggression hitting the operator from the side with devastating precision. The man went down hard, the scanner flying from his hands and shattering against the rocks. He tried to reach for his sidearm, but Havoc's teeth found his wrist, clamping down with controlled pressure. Not enough to break bone or sever tendons, just enough to immobilize and cause enough pain to prevent resistance. Shouts erupted from the other operators. Flashlight beams cut through the darkness, searching frantically. Isley moved while they were distracted. She sprinted toward the second SUV, staying low, using every piece of cover available. One of the operators spotted her and raised his weapon, the motion smooth and practiced. She fired first, not at him. At the SUV's front tire, the round punctured rubber with a sharp hiss, the tire deflating immediately. The operator returned fire without hesitation. Rounds sparked off the rocks near her head, fragments of stone cutting her cheek. She dropped and rolled, coming up behind a boulder, her training overriding the fear that tried to freeze her muscles. Havoc released the first operator and bolted toward the second group of men, drawing fire away from Isley. The dog was too fast, too unpredictable, moving in patterns that made him nearly impossible to track with a weapon. The operators could not get a clean shot without risking hitting each other. Isley used the chaos. She fired again, this time hitting the thermal scanner lying on the ground. It shattered in a shower of sparks and broken components, eliminating their technological advantage. A voice barked orders, the tone suggesting a senior operator taking control. Fall back. Regroup at Vehicle 2. Assess casualties. The operators retreated in good order, dragging their injured companion, providing covering fire for each other. Professional, disciplined, exactly what Isley would have done in their position. Havoc circled back to Isley, breathing hard but unharmed, his training keeping him safe even in chaos. She reloaded quickly, hands steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her system. They had maybe 2 minutes before the operators regrouped and came at them with a new plan, new tactics, adapted to what they had just learned about her capabilities. Isley whistled once, a short, sharp sound. Havoc followed her back to the truck at a run. She started the engine, reversed out from behind the boulders, and drove deeper into the riverbed, away from the pursuit, using the terrain to her advantage. The truck's headlights stayed off. She navigated by feel and fading moonlight, every bump and rock threatening to disable the vehicle, putting distance between them and the SUVs with every second. After 10 minutes of hard driving, she pulled onto a service road and turned north. The coordinates Agent Cross had sent were still on her phone, glowing softly in the darkness. She did not trust Cross completely. Trust was something that had to be earned, and Cross had not earned it yet. But right now, trust was a luxury she could not afford. Survival was all that mattered. Havoc settled beside her, panting softly, his body slowly relaxing from combat readiness. She reached over and scratched behind his ears, feeling the warmth of his fur, the solid reality of his presence. "Good boy, you just saved us. Again." Havoc's tail thumped once against the seat, the simple gesture carrying more meaning than words ever could. They drove for another hour, the landscape gradually changing from flat desert to rolling hills. Isley checked the mirrors constantly, watching for headlights that never appeared. Either they had lost the pursuit or the operators were hanging back, tracking her by other means. Before the sun crested the horizon, she saw the turnoff, a dirt road barely visible even in the growing light, easy to miss if you did not know exactly where to look. She took it, the truck bouncing over ruts and rocks, climbing into low hills covered in scrub and juniper that caught the first rays of dawn. The safe house appeared as the sun broke free of the earth. A small cabin, weathered wood and rusted metal roof, tucked into a canyon where it could not be seen from the air or from any road. Whoever had chosen this location knew what they were doing. Isley parked behind the structure, where the truck would be invisible from above, and killed the engine. She sat for a moment, listening to the silence, letting her combat alertness fade gradually. Nothing but wind moving through the canyon and the distant cry of a hawk hunting breakfast. She got out slowly, every muscle stiff from tension and driving. Havoc jumped down beside her, nose working the air, processing thousands of scents that told him everything about this new environment. The cabin door was unlocked, which either meant it was safe or it was a trap. Isley entered with the gun ready, clearing each corner the way she had been trained. Inside, the space was sparse but functional. A cot with military-grade bedding, a table bolted to the floor, supplies stacked in crates marked with codes she recognized, water, MREs, medical supplies, a secure satellite phone sitting on the table like it had been waiting for her. Isley checked the phone. It was active, encrypted with military-grade security. She set it down and collapsed onto the cot, exhaustion finally catching up to her now that the immediate danger had passed. Havoc curled up on the floor beside the cot, head resting on his paws, but his ears stayed alert, still on guard, even in rest. Within minutes, they were both asleep, the deep, dreamless sleep of soldiers who had survived another impossible day. When Isley woke, the sun was high and hot, turning the canyon into an oven. She checked her watch. 1,400 hours. She had slept for 6 hours straight, longer than she had slept in weeks. Havoc was awake, sitting by the door in perfect profile, alert and watchful. She stood and stretched, feeling every bruise and strain from the night before. She opened a crate of supplies and found bottled water and food. MREs for her. Specialized K9 rations for Havoc. She prepared both, the familiar routine grounding her. Havoc ate quickly and efficiently, then returned to his post by the door without being told. The satellite phone buzzed, the sound sharp in the quiet cabin. Isley answered cautiously, revealing nothing. Yes, it was Renwick, his voice clear despite the encryption. Miss Torm, are you secure? For now? Good. Listen carefully. The data Dr. Lahiri uploaded has reached the Inspector General. They have opened a formal investigation. Full scope. The defense contractor involved is under federal indictment. 5 executives were arrested this morning. More arrests are coming. Isley felt something loosen in her chest, a tension she had been carrying for so long she had forgotten it was there. And my team, Renwick's voice softened. Full honors. It will be a classified ceremony, but it is happening. Arlington, your name is being restored to the records. Official reinstatement followed by honorable discharge with full benefits and back pay for the entire time you were erased. She closed her eyes, seeing their faces. Ironside, Viper, Hatchet, Reaper. Thank you, Colonel. Do not thank me yet. The people who sent that team after you last night, they are not done. They are facing prison time, and they know you are the witness who can put them there. But the investigation gives you cover now. Publicly, you are a witness under federal protection. They cannot touch you without drawing the kind of attention that will destroy them. Isley opened her eyes, focusing on the practical. How long? Renwick paused, considering. Hard to say with certainty. Weeks at minimum, maybe months. The legal process moves slowly. But you are not alone in this anymore. That matters. Isley looked at Havoc, still standing guard by the door. I know. There is one more thing. Renwick's voice carried a note of satisfaction. The transfer paperwork for Havoc came through. He is officially yours now, retired from active duty. Medical discharge with full benefits. You are listed as his authorized handler and legal owner. Isley's voice cracked slightly, the emotion breaking through her control. Thank you. You earned it, operator. Both of you did. More than earned it. The line went dead, leaving Isley alone with the silence and the sunlight and the reality that maybe, finally, this nightmare was ending. She set the phone down and knelt beside Havoc. She wrapped her arms around him, burying her face in his fur, breathing in his familiar scent. We did it, boy. We are free. Actually free. Havoc leaned into her, his tail wagging slowly, trusting her completely. The weeks that followed developed a rhythm. Isley stayed at the safe house, checking in periodically with Renwick and Sokolov through the secure phone. The investigation moved forward with the inexorable weight of federal power behind it. More arrests, more revelations. The scandal spread through the defense industry like wildfire, consuming careers and reputations, exposing corruption that had been hidden for years. Isley did not watch the news. She did not need to see her story twisted and packaged for public consumption. She knew the truth. She had lived it. And the truth was finally doing what it was supposed to do, rising to the surface no matter how deep it had been buried. The canyon became her world. She hiked the trails with Havoc, relearning what it felt like to move through space without constantly watching for threats. She sat on the cabin porch in the evenings, watching the sun paint the canyon walls in shades of gold and crimson. She slept through entire nights without nightmares for the first time in months. Slowly, carefully, she began to heal. One morning, 6 weeks after arriving at the safe house, Renwick called again. "It is over," he said simply. "The people who erased you have been removed from their positions. Some are facing criminal charges. Others took early retirement to avoid prosecution. Either way, they cannot hurt you anymore. The threat is neutralized." Isley exhaled, feeling a weight lift that she had carried for so long it had become part of her. So, what happens now? Now you decide what comes next. You have options. The VA will cover all medical and psychiatric care. You have back pay deposited into an account we set up. And there is something else, a new program starting. For operators who have been through what you experienced, trauma, erasure, psychological injuries that the system does not know how to address, they want someone to run it, someone who understands from the inside. Isley looked out the window at Havoc, who was outside lying in a patch of sunlight, watching the horizon with patient alertness. "I will think about it. Take your time," Renwick said. "You have earned that much. You have earned everything." A month later, Isley stood in front of a black marble wall at Arlington National Cemetery. The morning was clear and cool, the kind of perfect autumn day that felt like a gift. The ceremony was small and private. No press, no cameras. Just a handful of people who knew the truth and understood what it had cost. The wall was new, installed quietly in a section of the cemetery reserved for classified operations. Engraved names gleamed in the morning light, each one representing a life given in service to missions that officially never happened. Operation Granite Reach, Ironside, Viper, Hatchet, Reaper. Isley wore her dress uniform, the fabric crisp and new, tailored perfectly. The medals she had never been allowed to receive were pinned to her chest now, each one representing actions and sacrifices that had been erased from history until now. Havoc sat beside her in his own uniform, his old tactical vest cleaned and restored, wearing it with the same dignity he had shown in combat. A chaplain spoke a few words about service and sacrifice, about the operators who gave everything in the shadows so that others could live in the light. His words were simple and honest, carrying the weight of genuine respect. Taps played, the notes cutting through the stillness with crystalline clarity. Each note hung in the air before fading, a musical representation of loss and honor intertwined. Isley saluted, her hand sharp and precise. Havoc sat at perfect attention beside her, as still as the marble wall itself. When the notes faded into silence, when the ceremony reached its conclusion, people began to disperse quietly. But before they could leave, a young officer approached Isley. He looked nervous, like he was not sure he had the right to speak to her. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "I wanted to say something. My brother was on a mission you consulted on 3 years ago. Yemen. He made it home because of the intelligence you provided. He would have died without it." Isley looked at him, seeing the sincerity in his young face. "He never knew your name. The mission was too classified. But I did some digging after the news about the investigation broke. I wanted to find you, to say thank you. He has a daughter now, 2 years old. She exists because you did your job." Isley's voice was soft. "What is her name?" The officer smiled, genuine warmth breaking through his nervousness. "Isley. He named her Isley. He said it was the name of someone who saved his life, even though he never knew who she was." Isley's composure cracked, just for a second. emotion breaking through the careful control. She nodded, not trusting her voice. "Tell him I am honored, truly honored." The officer saluted with precision. She returned it with equal care. Then he turned and walked away, leaving her alone with Havoc and the wall and the weight of lives saved and lost. As the small crowd dispersed, people offering quiet nods of respect as they passed, Isley knelt beside Havoc. She wrapped her arms around him, feeling his warmth, his solid reality, the proof that they had both survived. "We did it," she whispered. "They will remember now. They will always remember." Havoc leaned into her embrace, his presence saying everything that needed to be said. She stood eventually and walked to the wall, placing her hand on the cold marble, feeling the texture of the engraved letters under her palm. She closed her eyes and let herself remember, not just the firefight and the blood and the chaos, but the people, her team. The way Ironside always checked his gear 3 times. The way Viper could make anyone laugh even in the worst situations. The way Hatchet never left anyone behind, never, which is why he died covering their retreat. The way Reaper had been Havoc's partner, the 2 dogs working together with perfect synchronization. "I am sorry it took so long," she said quietly, "but you are not forgotten. You never will be. Not while I am alive to remember." She stepped back and saluted one last time, holding it for a long moment before dropping her hand. When she turned away from the wall, Renwick was waiting near the entrance to the memorial section. He approached slowly, giving her space to compose herself. "Welcome home, Operator Torme," he said, extending his hand. She shook it, feeling the strength in his grip, the respect in the gesture. "Thank you, Colonel, for everything." "So, what is next for you?" he asked. Isley looked at Havoc, who was watching her with those intelligent eyes that had seen too much, but somehow remained trusting. "I think we are going to take some time, figure out what normal looks like, if that is even possible." Renwick smiled, understanding in his expression. "You have earned it. Both of you have. Take all the time you need." She nodded and walked away, Havoc falling into step beside her without needing to be called. They reached her truck in the parking area, the same old vehicle that had carried them through the desert, through pursuit and danger, and into this new uncertain future. She opened the door. Havoc jumped in, settling on the seat like it was his throne. She climbed in beside him and started the engine, the familiar rumble oddly comforting. She sat for a moment, hands on the wheel, looking at the cemetery in the rearview mirror, the marble wall, the flag flying above it, the sacred ground holding so many stories, so much sacrifice. Then she shifted into gear and drove away, leaving the past honored but not forgotten, carrying it with her into whatever came next. The road stretched out ahead, open and endless in the way that roads and new beginnings always are. For the first time in what felt like forever, Isley did not feel like she was running from something. She was just moving forward, choosing her own direction, free to decide what happened next. Havoc rested his head on her shoulder, the gesture so familiar it made her chest ache with emotion. She reached up and scratched behind his ears without taking her eyes off the road. "We are okay now, boy. We are actually okay." Havoc's tail thumped against the seat, the rhythm steady and content. They drove through the Virginia countryside, leaving the city and its monuments behind. The fall foliage was beginning to turn, splashes of red and gold against the green. The morning sun warmed the cab of the truck, casting long shadows across the road. Isley thought about the offer Renwick had made, the program for operators who had been erased, who carried invisible wounds, who needed someone who understood. She could help others who had gone through what she had experienced, give them a way back from the darkness, show them that survival was possible, that healing was real even if it was slow and difficult. But not yet. Not quite yet. First, she needed to remember what it felt like to be whole, to exist without constantly looking over her shoulder, to trust that the ground beneath her feet was solid. She pulled off the highway after an hour of driving and onto a dirt road that led into the mountains. There was a cabin there, one she had found during her months of disappearing and reappearing, small, quiet, surrounded by pine trees and a stream that ran year-round, the water clear and cold from mountain snowmelt. It was not much, just a structure and some land, but it was hers, bought with cash under her real name, the first thing she had owned in her own identity in over 6 months. She parked in front of the cabin and got out. Havoc jumped down beside her, immediately exploring the area with his nose, mapping this new territory, claiming it as his own through scent and presence. Isley unloaded supplies from the truck: food, water, gear, the basics of survival and comfort. She carried everything inside and set it down in the main room. The cabin was just as she had left it 2 months ago when she had first found it: clean, simple, safe, 4 walls and a roof, and windows that looked out on forest and sky, a fireplace for heat, a kitchen with running water from a well, a bedroom with a real bed, luxury beyond measure after months of motels and safe houses. She stepped outside and sat on the porch steps, breathing in air that smelled like pine and earth and possibility. Havoc came over and lay down beside her, head resting on her lap, his weight warm and reassuring. She stroked his fur, feeling the rise and fall of his breathing, the simple miracle of his presence. For the first time in a long time, longer than she could remember, she felt at peace. Not just the absence of danger, but actual peace. The kind that settles into your bones and lets you believe that maybe the worst is really over. The mountains rose around them, ancient and silent and strong. The stream murmured in the background, a constant gentle sound. Birds called from the trees, living their uncomplicated lives. Isley closed her eyes and let herself just be. Not a soldier, not an operator, not a witness or a victim or a survivor. Just a woman sitting on a porch with her dog, existing in a moment that belonged only to them. Weeks turned into months as autumn deepened into winter. Isley settled into rhythms that had nothing to do with missions or survival. She chopped wood for the fireplace, the physical work satisfying in its simplicity. She fished in the stream when the weather allowed, remembering skills her father had taught her decades ago. She hiked the mountain trails with Havoc always at her side, both of them growing stronger as the days passed. She checked in with Renwick occasionally, brief calls that confirmed the world was continuing to turn without her active participation. The investigation had concluded successfully. Convictions had been secured. Her name had been fully restored to military records. Her team had been properly honored. Justice, in its own slow bureaucratic way, had been served. One afternoon in early December, Isley received a package. No return address, just her name and the cabin's address written in precise handwriting. She opened it carefully, old instincts making her cautious even now. Inside was a photograph, protected by cardboard and bubble wrap. Her team: Ironside, Viper, Hatchet, and her. Taken before the mission that changed everything. They were smiling in the photo, confident and young, unaware of what was coming, believing they were invincible the way all young soldiers believe. Beneath the photo was a handwritten note on plain paper. They mattered. You made sure of it. Thank you for not letting them be forgotten. Sokolov? Isley stared at the photograph for a long time, seeing ghosts and memories and the weight of promises kept. Then she carried it inside and placed it on the mantel above the fireplace, where she could see it every day, where their faces would remind her why the fight had mattered. Havoc watched from the doorway, his presence patient and understanding. She turned to him, speaking aloud to the only witness who truly knew. They did matter, every single one of them. And so do you. Havoc's tail wagged slowly, acknowledgement and agreement. That evening, Isley sat on the porch as the sun set behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple and deep blue. Havoc lay beside her, content and warm despite the winter cold. She thought about the future, really thought about it for the first time in months. About the program Renwick had mentioned, about the operators who were still out there, erased and forgotten, carrying wounds that no one else could see or understand. About what it might mean to help them find their way back. Maybe she could do it. Maybe that was what she was supposed to do next, the mission that would give shape to all the survival and suffering, turn pain into purpose, transform loss into meaning. But for now, right now, she was here, with Havoc, in a place where no one was hunting them, where the past could rest without being forgotten, where the future could wait until she was ready to meet it. She reached over and scratched behind Havoc's ears, the gesture automatic and affectionate. You did good, boy. You did so incredibly good. Havoc's tail thumped against the wooden porch, the sound solid and real. They sat together as darkness fell, watching stars emerge one by one in the winter sky. The temperature dropped, but neither of them moved, content to stay in this moment, this perfect, simple moment of peace. And for the first time since the mission, since the erasure, since everything that had broken and been slowly rebuilt, Isley felt whole, not healed completely. Some wounds never fully heal, but whole enough, strong enough, ready enough. Ready for whatever came next. 6 months later, spring had transformed the mountains into something green and alive. Isley stood in front of a classroom in a nondescript government building outside Washington. 20 operators sat in chairs arranged in a rough circle, all of them recently returned from deployments that had left marks that did not show, all of them carrying scars that medications and time alone could not heal. She had agreed to run the program, finally ready to take on the mission Renwick had offered, to help others who had been through what she had experienced: trauma, erasure, the kind of psychological wounds that the system did not know how to address because the system had created them in the first place. Havoc lay in the corner of the room, calm and watchful, his presence somehow making the space feel safer. Isley looked at the faces in front of her and saw herself reflected in each one, the exhaustion that went bone deep, the confusion of trying to fit back into a world that had moved on, without them, the anger at systems that used them and then abandoned them, the fear that maybe they were broken beyond repair. She spoke quietly, her voice carrying authority earned through experience rather than rank. My name is Isley Torm. I was erased from military records after a classified operation went catastrophically wrong. For 6 months, I did not exist according to any official database. I had no identity, no support system, no way back to the life I had known. The room was absolutely silent, everyone leaning forward slightly, hungry for someone who understood. But I found my way back, with help from people who believed me when they had every reason not to. And with him. She gestured to Havoc. The dog lifted his head, ears perking forward, somehow sensing he was part of the story. You are not alone in what you are feeling. You are not forgotten, even if it feels that way. And you are not broken beyond repair. You are here in this room, and that means you are still fighting, still choosing to survive, and that matters more than you know. One of the operators, a woman with tired eyes and a nervous tension in her shoulders, raised her hand slightly. How did you keep going? When everything felt impossible, how did you not just give up? Isley thought about the question, considering her answer carefully. I had a mission. I had to find him. I had to make sure my team was remembered for what they actually did, not erased like they never mattered. And when I had nothing else, when I was living in cheap motels with fake identification and wondering if I would ever be real again, I had that purpose. It kept me moving forward. She paused, meeting the woman's eyes directly. Find your mission. Whatever it is, it does not have to be grand or world-changing. It just has to be yours, something that matters to you, something worth surviving for. And hold on to it with everything you have, because that is what will bring you back from the darkness. Not all at once, not easily, but gradually, one day at a time, it will bring you back. The session continued for 2 hours. Isley shared more of her story, holding nothing back, giving them the truth unfiltered. The operators shared their own experiences, voices breaking sometimes, anger surfacing sometimes, but slowly, gradually, something else emerging too. Connection, understanding, the beginning of trust. When the session ended, the woman with tired eyes approached, moving hesitantly like she was not sure she had permission. Thank you, she said quietly, for this, for showing us that it is actually possible to come back. I was not sure I believed it until today. Isley nodded, recognizing the fragile hope in the woman's voice. It is possible. It is hard and slow, and sometimes it feels impossible. But it is possible. I promise you that. The woman smiled then, a small, genuine smile, the first real one Isley had seen from her. Then she left, walking a little straighter than she had when she arrived. Havoc walked over and pressed against Isley's leg, offering comfort and companionship. She looked down at him, scratching behind his ears. We are doing good work here, boy. Really good work. Havoc's tail wagged, his way of agreeing. That night, Isley drove back to the cabin through darkness and mountain roads she knew by heart now. She parked and sat for a moment before going inside, looking up at stars scattered across the sky like diamonds on black velvet. Her phone buzzed with a message from Renwick. Heard the first session went extremely well. Multiple participants requested to continue. You are making a real difference. Proud of you, operator. She smiled and set the phone down, warmth spreading through her chest at the simple words of recognition. Inside the cabin, she lit a fire in the fireplace and sat on the floor in front of it, Havoc curled up beside her, head resting on her knee, his weight familiar and comforting. She looked at the photograph on the mantel, her team frozen in time, forever young, forever smiling, forever remembered. She raised her hand in a quiet salute, holding it for a long moment. You are not forgotten. You will never be forgotten. Not while I am alive to remember. Not while I can tell your story. The fire crackled, flames dancing and casting shifting shadows. The night settled around them, peaceful and safe, and in that moment, Isley understood with absolute clarity that she had done what she set out to do. She had found Havoc against impossible odds. She had cleared her name when the system wanted her to stay erased. She had honored her team when it would have been easier to let them fade into classified obscurity. She had survived when survival seemed impossible. And now she was doing something even more important. She was helping others survive, turning her pain into purpose, transforming her trauma into a bridge that others could use to cross from darkness into light. It was enough, more than enough. It was everything. Havoc sighed contentedly, his breathing slow and even. Isley stroked his fur, feeling the warmth of the fire on her face, the weight of the moment settling into her bones. Outside, the mountain stood silent and eternal under the stars. The stream murmured its endless song. The forest breathed with life, continuing in the darkness. And inside the cabin, a woman and her dog rested together, whole, free, home. The mission was complete. The promises were kept. The debts were paid. But the work was just beginning. And Isley Torme was ready for it. Ready to help others find their way back. Ready to prove that erasure was not permanent, that wounds could heal, that even in the darkest moments, hope was possible. She sat by the fire until it burned down to embers, Havoc sleeping peacefully beside her, both of them safe in the knowledge that they had survived the unsurvivable and come out stronger on the other side. And when she finally stood to go to bed, she felt something she had not felt in years, genuine peace. The kind that comes from knowing you have done right by the people who mattered, that you have kept faith with the fallen, that you have turned suffering into something meaningful. She looked at the photograph one more time before turning out the lights. "Thank you," she whispered to the faces in the frame. "Thank you for trusting me. Thank you for the sacrifice. I will make sure it continues to matter." Then she went to bed, Havoc following her. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, she slept without nightmares, dreaming instead of mountains and sunlight and a future full of purpose. The next morning, she woke to birdsong and light streaming through the windows. Havoc was already awake, sitting by the door, ready for whatever the day would bring. She got up and opened the door, letting him out into the fresh mountain air. She stood on the porch, coffee in hand, watching him explore with the enthusiasm of a dog who knew he was home. Her phone rang, another operator from yesterday's session, asking if they could talk, needing help. Reaching out instead of suffering alone. Isley smiled and answered, her voice warm and steady. "Of course, I am here. That is what this is for." And as she talked, as she helped, as she used her pain to ease someone else's suffering, she understood that this was the real mission. Not the operations that got classified and buried, not the medals or the recognition or the official records. This, helping people who had been broken by the same system that had broken her. Showing them the way back, proving that survival was possible, that healing was real, that they were not alone. It was the mission she was meant for all along, the one that would define the rest of her life, and she was ready for it. Havoc came back and sat beside her, looking up with those intelligent eyes. She reached down and scratched his head. "Ready for another day, boy?" His tail wagged. She smiled. "Me too." And together they stepped forward into the future, carrying the past with honor, but not letting it define them, ready to help others find the same freedom they had fought so hard to claim. The sun rose higher over the mountains, painting everything in golden light. A new day, a new beginning, a new mission. And Isley Torme, operator, survivor, and now healer, was exactly where she needed to be. Have you ever had to rebuild yourself from nothing? Have you ever fought for truth when the whole world wanted it buried? The strongest people are often the ones who survived what should have broken them. If this story reminded you that resilience is real and that healing is possible even from the deepest wounds, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you believe in honoring those who serve in silence, subscribe. There are more stories like this, stories of quiet courage and unbreakable bonds waiting to be told. Thank you for witnessing this journey.